Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Fear the Walking Dead, Season 8, Episode 6. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. The mid-season finale, and a wild mid-season finale. I mean, after picking up the events of last episode, Morgan is seeing red. We've never gotten to see Morgan like this. It's interesting because we've seen like Morgan in this state of like being in kind of this fugue state. We've seen this probably like when he met up with Rick again for the first time and pre him meeting Eastman when he was lost, when he was just clearing. We've seen that, but we've never seen to this point that he's like disassociating, going into a trance and losing himself, blacking out in a fugue state and going on a killing spree. Like, we know that he's done that, but this is our first time really getting to see it. He was on some like, it heavily reminded me of Moon Knight. It was wild, and him killing every walker in his way. And Madison's like, well, when I found you, you had killed all of them. I had to knock you down just so you wouldn't kill me. And it's the saddest. This episode is heartbreaking in so many regards because I think it is history repeating itself so much for so many characters, and especially for Morgan, because he thought like, no, I dealt with it. I thought after episode 4, I'd be okay. Like, I found Dwayne and Jenny and I buried them. Why is this still happening? Because now the cycle's repeating, because what happened? He lost Jenny and then he lost Dwayne. Now he lost Grace and now he's potentially going to lose Mo. The difference is, and but it doesn't make it any better, at least when it came to Grace, he put Grace down. He couldn't do it to Jenny until after he was in his fugue state, and then after Dwayne got bit. That's what ended up happening. But this time things were a little different, but history's still repeating itself. So Morgan's desperate to try and find his way to Mo, and they go to the shipping yard because that's where her and the other prefects were. All these walkers are dead, and at first I was like, has Morgan already been here or something? It's like, no, he hasn't. I'd skipped over it, but he already had like written on the wall, like written on the wall like he had done previously about clear, Grace is gone, and now Mo's going to run away, and because she's doing exactly what he did. And I think that's his greatest fear, is that she would eventually, like, what's happening to him would eventually happen to her. That it's like, right, you're running away from, like, you need to feel what you're feeling. It's understandable why you want to run away from it. You're doing all this to kind of distract yourself. You're going to help with this whole Padre thing because you want to be as far away from your feelings as possible, but it still doesn't you can't outrun them. They're always going to follow you no matter where you go. You're going to be haunted by them. So it's kind of, you kind of have to face them, because if you don't, you're going to be running for the rest of your life, because you can't run far enough to get away from them. So when it's all said and done, at the shipyard, he lost control and snapped back to it. Daniel and them are there. It's like, man, he's killing walkers left and right. And Madison couldn't, because Madison was like, right, at the very least, I'm here, which I thought was beautiful, because for Madison, it's like, you brought me back when I felt lost, when all I had was my kids and I felt like I'd lost them and I lost myself along the way trying to get back to my kids, because that's all I could think about, that you were able to bring me back from that point. And I want to do the same for you. But sadly, because especially when Morgan first got lost, back after like what happened to Dwayne, he had no one to kind of rein him back in, and Madison wanted to be that person, but she couldn't initially do it. She needed Daniel and the other parents to like hold Morgan back to kind of get him like, hey, like get him like focused, like try and ground him again. But it just, and Morgan's scared of like, what am I going to do? Like, what if I hurt you? What if I hurt someone else? What if I get close to Mo and I end up hurting her? I can't trust myself in this moment. He's so torn between, hey, I've got to get to my child because she's all I have in this world. If I lose her, I'm going to break again. And if I break again fully, there's no going back. I'm sure for him, it's like, I might as well be dead at that point. But it's also like, right, if I'm in this fugue state, like I'm ready to set off and pop off at any moment in time, I can't be around my daughter, so I don't know what to do. And she's actively running away from you because it's like, she doesn't want to be around you. She's trying to, in her own way, it's like, I'm trying to keep you safe. I'm doing this, but because I'd rather like push you away and keep you alive than be around and kind of wait for you to die. So now, like, they're working with like Shrike and Crane can't find the coordinates no matter what shipping containers they check. So it turns out, funny enough, that the coordinates that they needed are in the binoculars that they give back to their dad. It's like, man, that's why their dad probably left the binoculars with them, because that was supposed to be the point of like, when I don't know if he probably put those in after Crane and Shrike tracked him down in the shipping containers and before he died, or maybe they always were there. That's why he probably like, I don't know. I'd assume it was like after, like before he died, he put them in there, but I could be mistaken. But they're looking for those coordinates, and it's like, right, maybe if they had done something about their dad all those years ago, they would have already had the coordinates. But it's like, right, they couldn't bring themselves to kill their dad. I think there's that, which draws a very direct and interesting parallel to Morgan in that regard, because he couldn't kill Ginny. History ended up repeating itself in that regard too, because like the direct parallels of, because Morgan couldn't kill Ginny, it led to Dwayne's death, and because they couldn't kill their dad, it led to Shrike's death. So I don't think that's kind of like beautiful when you draw those connections in that regard. I think that was 100% intentional. But it's like, yeah, if they had killed their dad all those years ago, they would have probably been able to keep the binoculars. But it's also like, right, we couldn't do that. And also having all these walkers in here, put more and more and more of them in here, because it keeps the shipping container safe, because no one's going to be crazy enough to go in there. I mean, none of them are doing the more because it's not a tactic most people know. Because they don't, like, it's come up in this show from time to time, but rarely does anyone utilize the Whisperers tactic. Like, even before we met the Whisperers, that was already a tactic for the Whisperers have their own tactic of like how they use it. So the only people who know how to do that are people connected, like the squad from The Walking Dead and like the Whisperers, any remnants of them, like, and like Lydia are the only ones who really know that. But like the more like covering yourself in blood and stuff, like that was kind of the OG version of it, and then the Whisperers had their version of it. So it's like, even like I wasn't even referencing the Whisper stuff, because obviously like Morgan wouldn't know, but I was specifically referencing like covering yourself in blood. Like that's come up in this show a little bit, but it's never been like something they actively use, Even in The Walking Dead, they never actively used it. They used it from time to time, but it wasn't always like a go-to move. It's kind of like if you're desperate enough in a very compromised position, it's kind of the go-to move in that regard. But either way, you have Mo and the others leading the walkers to the boat. Well, because they're going to like the boathouse, but it's also because Shrike is telling her like, right, we need you to find basically my dad. And even Mo's like, oh, are you asking us to do that because it's your dad as a walker, or because of the coordinates? It's like, because of the coordinates. This has always been about that. He most likely has them, because we can't find them anywhere else, so it has to be in the binoculars. That's the only place we haven't looked in all these years, and even more recently with looking through all these containers and files and stuff. So they're holding off the walkers, but even then it's like there's too many of them, so they can't hold out forever. Morgan makes his way there, slicing, like, he has back-to-back, like, lapses when he's like, right, he wants his axe, he blacks out, and then Madison's trying to stop him, he blacks out again, and then he's in, like, kind of, like, some mud, and he sees that he attacked Madison's oxygen tank. It's like, what did I do? Crap, I gotta get to Mo. It's like, Mo, if you see me, run away. You're right to stay away from me. He ends up finding Mo after slicing through, just constantly slipping in and slipping out. And Mo stabbed him because it's like, right, you tried to attack me. He's like, no, I completely understand. You did what you had to do. But she's like, I tried to get away from you and you followed me. But it's like, I'm not going to leave you here to die, because I'm not going to let you die in front of me like I did Mom. So Madison because she wants to keep her promise to Morgan that she's going to help out Mo. So Mo dives underneath the water with the oxygen tank, the scuba tank and gear that Morgan had for her to use. And it's like, I'm sure for him, it's like, given enough time, it's like, right, I can like black out and I'm going to make my way through it. I mean, he only got out because Madison saved him. I'm curious, like, if he was still in his fugue state, he probably wouldn't have saved himself. He would have just kept killing throughout the walkers, and he probably wouldn't, if he cleared them enough, he probably would have been able to snap back to reality. But he probably, with the place sinking, he probably wouldn't have been able, so it's, once again, going back to that place, because this is where it all went down. Because we find out Morgan has done this recently. Like, we think, like, the last time, like, the last time Morgan was like this, I think arguably you could say at the beginning of season 6 when he was with Isaac and Rachel and he was kind of aiming for like his revenge against Virginia when he started killing again. But it wasn't the same because he was kind of lost then, but it is more so like right after he lost Dwayne and when he met up with Rick again for the first time, once again pre Eastman, he was kind of in that state. And but he admits that he was back in that situation 7 years ago because he didn't talk to Mo about it. But it's like, yeah, part of the story of, hey, I was desperate, we were backed into a corner. He's like, the situation was exactly like this, and I went into my fugue state and I started killing and I was covered in blood. And in that moment, I was like, not cool. I just think I can't protect you. And also he didn't trust himself because of it. And now he wants to break the cycle, so he needs to make sure Mo's okay. But she's not with Madison because Madison came to get him because she wasn't going to let him die. And Madison says this poignant line of like, those who are gone are never gone. Like even with Alicia and Nick being gone, they will always be with me. Everyone I've ever lost is always with me there. And to me, that I will always go back to it. It reminds me of that in line. I can never say it verbatim, but I'll kind of like approximate it. It's the what if line in episode 5 of What If. It's the zombie episode when T'Challa says, no one is truly gone. As long as we continue to remember those we've lost, they are never truly gone. And obviously, at that, that was well after the time we lost Chadwick Boseman. So it hit even more. And to me, I think that's a beautiful statement. And that's the sentiment Madison's getting across, that anyone we've ever lost is here with us. And to play into that, like one of the final shots of this episode, but also like the opening credits, it's Morgan, and then you see like silhouettes of so many people we lost. I couldn't tell like who some of the silhouettes were, but you could tell who. Like I saw the hat, I was like, oh, that's got to be that's got to be Junior. I think even Senior probably had to have, but you could tell a little bit from the silhouettes. I knew like Dwayne and Jenny were one, and obviously like the last ones were like Alicia and Grace. So I could tell those, but some of the other ones I wasn't sure. But we'll talk about that when we get to the end because I'm like, okay, it makes sense. So Daniel ends up trying to talk to all the kids because they're being told like, hey, you need to kill all these people because Crane's telling them to do that. And it's like he's like, I was in your position because we've learned about Daniel's past like years ago about how he became who he is and everything. And it's like, right, you're asking kids to pull the trigger. It's like they can't. You're asking them to do this because you ask these children to kill. It's going to stay with them for the rest of their lives. They won't be able to run away with it. You will always be haunted by what you did. And then we know for a fact. Daniel, we got to experience some of that haunting for Daniel of what he's done and obviously what he's lost because he also believed like, cool, everything I went through was kind of punishment for what I've done in the past, the terrible things I've ever done. So he knows what it's like living with the ghost, living with your past mistakes. And, Crane's desperate. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it speaks volumes. I guess Crane's never directly killed anyone either because even with the gun pointed to Daniel's head, like he never pulled the trigger. And I think it's also interesting too that Dove is up there being like, yeah, pull the trigger. But it's like, yeah, Odessa, you're not up there like pulling the trigger either. You're kind of giving the commands, telling them to do it, but I don't see a gun in your hand. I wasn't expecting Shrike's story to play out the way it did too, especially when you consider like Dwight was about to go full like revenge mode, but June's like, no, let me handle it. I wasn't there when my daughter died, and like that's haunted her. I think there's a lot of people who fortunately have been like, obviously, sadly, Morgan kind of finally got closure on his front. Obviously, Madison wasn't there when Nick died or whatever happened to Alicia, which we'll get to at the end. So a lot of people didn't really get to say goodbye. I guess you can make the argument, well, Senior never got to say goodbye to Junior, John Dory. None of the Dorys got to say goodbye to each other. Well, John did write that Junior did write that letter for Senior, so there is that. So, but still, like, they didn't have that, and then there's Grace and Athena. At least she got to say goodbye to Mo, and Mo got to say goodbye to Grace, but still. Michonne and Rick got to say goodbye to Carl. So like there's a lot in those moments, in those situations. So I think that's kind of like It doesn't always happy. It is not always a situation where the parents get to say goodbye to their children or the children get to say goodbye to their parents. And once again, no parent should ever have to have their child die before them. It's like, no, I'm supposed to die, and then like you're supposed to live your life and grow old. And sadly, that does not always play out in real life, but also in this universe, as we've seen time and time again. But going back to Dwight. June is like, I'll take it. You stay here with Fitch, and because he doesn't have much time, and there's not much else I can do for him. And it's not just him. Sherry's also going to need you too during the he needs to be with both of his parents at the end. And then we had the situation with Shrike when the time came, she couldn't pull the trigger on. I think she was so caught up in seeing her dad again, but it was just also like, right, you've gone. You thought you were following your father's legacy, but the way Madison and Morgan said, it's like, right, she realized what this place was originally supposed to be. Like, it's the thing of, you try to be like, right, like our pain, we never want anyone to go through it again, but your pain, you spent all these years running away from it, but that pain has stayed with you, and it's warped what was supposed to be what Padre was supposed to be. It was so warped and twisted because of your pain. And once again, that line of that pain isn't gone, it's always with you. Those who are gone are always with you. And so for Morgan's like, I want you to stay with me, Mo, but if what you need to do is go with them and go on a ship, we'll give you the coordinates, you can go. Because I also like them explaining, well, why don't we just go somewhere anywhere? It's like, these places were specifically chosen because it's like, right, the ground, the soil level and stuff like that. Because we want places so that when you put roots down here, it's sustainable for years to come. That it is a place where, like, hey, you can grow food and sustain, like, a colony, with like food and stuff like that. So it makes sense why this specific locations were chosen. So when it's all said and done, Shrike gets bitten by her dad because she just like breaks down, like, I'm so sorry. It's like, because like, I guess because of how the whole situation played out with like their dad sacrificing themselves for him, but also like we got so lost in our way that we forgot what this place was really supposed to be about. So she's bitten, and she's asking June to give her the treatment, but it's like, no, that's not up to me. After all that you've done, Morgan and them told me where you were, so I found you, and left it up to Dwight. But Finch is like, no, don't let anyone go through this. Like, no matter what she's done, she doesn't deserve this. No one does. And so it's like, right, make it quick. Crane in his own regard, got to say goodbye to his sister, and it's like, June's like, right, you do it or either I will do it, because it's like, right, you don't deserve it after all. That's the thing of, regardless of what your pain is, what you've been through, it doesn't justify the terrible things that you've done. In her mind, she could justify it all, but it's like, now it's like, right, was it really all worth it when you've twisted and contorted Padre into what it wasn't, into what it became, but it wasn't meant to be that. You contorted it and did this because you kind of made it into like a Frankenstein monster. You became the Victor Frankenstein of this monster situation. Padre became Frankenstein's monster, and her and her brother were kind of very Frankenstein and Igor-esque. I feel like she's more so the Frankenstein, especially because of the experiments and stuff. The treatment obviously doesn't work. So obviously it doesn't do anything for Finch, but she's like, right, you can give me more radiation. It's like, no, also I'm not going to do anything to save your life after everything that you've done. So we can only assume Crane ends up killing her. And June was like, yeah, you're going to have to find somewhere else to live when this is all said and done. So that's the end of their story. I was almost being like, wow, is this? It seems like this Padre thing is wrapped up to what we know of it so far. Because it's obviously transitioning into something else. But at first I was like, wow, are we really saying goodbye? I was like, oh, I thought this would have been like the full thing. Just like the community situation in the original Walking Dead ended up being like the main thing. In the end, so I thought that was kind of be a parallel, which, like I said, it still kind of is. Like I said, Padre's just going to be something different in the second half of this season. But, yeah, Mo decided she is going to stay with Morgan because it's like that. She wants to be able to remember it. She doesn't want to just remember him. She wants to be with him. So she's planning on staying because of what Madison did. Morgan was able to finally take those steps forward fully. Because even with the Dwayne and Jenny of it all, he was still carrying that pain. So obviously we see it was still in him. But the fact is that he still, like, all he saw was red and kind of lost himself. But he's like, I'm not going to lose myself again because I finally found myself because of Madison. And so it's like, I guess this is Lenny James' exit from the show. I thought he would have been here to like the very, very end, but it seems like that's not the case. Because I actually was thinking about it. This episode actually reminds me of Rick's quote-unquote last episode. Like, spoilers, but not really, because I don't know for sure, but I think Rick pops up in the series finale of The Walking Dead. Once again, I still have not seen the final 2 episodes. It's something I'm going to try to do this weekend. I need to get on it. That's why it's going to take me a while before I get to Dead City. I know that dropped today, but I'm probably not going to watch it just because I have not caught up with I haven't finished The Walking Dead. I want to also, like, finish Tales. I don't need to, but I'd rather just for, like, my posterity's sake. So there's, so much I need to finish that I've fallen so far behind on. But anyway, that's tangents and all that aside. But it reminds me of, in episode 5 of season 9 when Rick, quote-unquote, died. Everyone thought he died, but he got shipped off. It kind of reminded me of that in conjunction with Michonne's last episode, because wasn't it like episode 13 of season 10, I believe, was her final episode, I think? I believe it was like episode 13 of season 10. Wasn't it? Yeah. Either way, when it's all said and it kind of gave me those parallels, where it's just like, oh, you're setting up this character's exit, so I guess it's the last time we potentially see Mo too. But Morgan's going to go back. He's like, right, there's a lot of people I care about that I left behind when I came to Texas. I think those were the grave situations, and that led to the Rick conversation. I thought he's like, are you going to go back to Atlanta? Or wherever, because they're still in Georgia, aren't they? The Walking Dead crew, aren't they? I don't remember where Alexandria and all that is. Like, isn't that still in Georgia? I legitimately don't remember. I kind of forget, like, because obviously, like, the show's always been in Georgia. Obviously, it films in Georgia, so it's always been in Georgia. But it's like Fear, like, I kind of forget, like, oh yeah, Fear started in California, and then we've been in Texas. Yeah, I think we're still. Oh, right, I forgot. We also went to Mexico. That was actually it, wasn't it? It was California, Mexico, then Texas, or was it like Texas/Mexico at the same time? I don't remember. Because there's still also a lot of characters we don't know where they are. Like, we don't know about Luciana, once again, the Charlie of it all. We never got to see her in, but I feel like that's got to be something that maybe comes up during the second half of the season. The biggest one of all is like, where the F is our boy Victor? It's like, with Madison's return, we got to get the reunion between those two. So that might have something to do with like the stinger at the end, but like I said, we'll get to that when we get to it. So Morgan is making his exit, and obviously, leaving everything in Madison's care. That, like, right, she's going to lead the charge with the new Padre. It's like, well, the boat's ready. Like, are we going to go with all the supplies and everything? But for Madison, it's like, no, we're going to make Padre what it always was meant to be. And we're going to, there's all those files, and we're going to try and find the parents if they're still out there. Because obviously, in Odessa's case, like her, in Dove's case, like her parents aren't alive anymore. Her mom died last season. But some of those kids, their parents might be out there and might, so that was going to be Madison's redemption mission, and she's going to continue that, and it's like, right, we're going to make Padre what it always was meant to be before it was contorted into what it is. We also had the Sherry and Dwight of it all. I don't know what to fully make of that, because it feels like their situation is kind of reflective of it feels like they're running away from their circumstances. So it's kind of like their messaging in the story feels like it's not following the same trend it should be with like everyone. I don't know what to fully make of that. I don't know if that's their exit from the show or what, but them going their separate ways, because it's like, right, they've lost Fitch now, and it's just, when we're together, nothing ever works out. It's like, it is kind of sad, like everything we've been through. It's like, right, maybe it's not the assholes of the world like Negan and Shrike. Maybe it's us. Maybe we're just not meant to be together. It's kind of sad, and like, especially with the whole Morgan and Grace thing of like how much time they wasted, and like how much time Dwight and Sherry were apart, and they found their way back to each other. That was obviously like, it came with its complications when they first met up again in this series, but I don't know what to fully make of that. he's going to go back home. So it feels like they are referencing like maybe she'll stay with the group and help with the Padre situation, but maybe Dwight's like bowing. So like this might not just be Morgan's exit, or maybe it's all three of their exits. I'm sure the information's out there, but like I said, I'm just talking like based on what we've seen in the episode. I'll probably might include something in the comments down below about whether this is like their last episodes or not. Like I said, that information is probably out there. It might have already been out there prior to this, because that stuff typically ends up happening. Like Andrew Lincoln's exit from the show, like from The Walking Dead, you knew it well in advance. So that whole thing. So I don't know. We'll have to see on that front how that plays out. But I'm like, oh man, that sucks after everything you've been through. And it just feels like you should double down and stay together. But it's also like, especially where they are right now, maybe some time apart will make them realize, I don't know. It feels like their messaging in the story counters the other messaging in the story of just kind of like, don't run. And it feels like they are running, but like, who am I to judge? I'm not trying to judge. I'm not even thinking I'm judging. I just feel like it's not the right move to make, but I don't know. And then we had Morgan going to like all these different graves, and there was one that got caught on the camera. I was like, it looks like that says Eastman, and it was. And I think it's like everyone they've kind of ever, like he's ever lost, and he's kind of, had, burials for, and obviously burying Grace. And I love his message to Eastman where it's like, right, look at my staff. It's a lot different than when you originally gave it to me like all those years ago. But it's like, for him, it's like, all life is precious, and it isn't a thing of it comes down to killing or not killing. What it comes down to is making the most of the time we have here. It is something that we all take for granted. And, obviously him kind of like now being able to kind of, Mo's already trained up a little bit, but now kind of being the one more directly involved with her training, I think is kind of neat. And, her training, and I'm sure it like brings a lot back from Morgan, especially when he kneeled down and touched Grace's grave. And we saw those flashes because, like I said, some of those people I couldn't make out from the silhouettes. I didn't realize one of them was Nick and one of them was, I want to say was it Bradley? I don't remember. It's Henry's older brother. But I thought it's not in these orders, but seeing like all these people who were influential and important to Morgan who are gone, who all played a role in some shape or form. Like some of them were a fresh start for him. They are the reason why he was able to keep going. Because the whole thing of that, everyone around me dies, I'm the one that doesn't die. And it's like, they are gone, but they're always with you. They're a part of you now, and they always will be. And as long as you remember them and remember they're a part of you. So like I said, Jenny and Dwayne, like I said, I think his name is Bradley, but we'll just, for posterity's sake, Henry's brother, who he trained. Then Isaac and Rachel, because of them, it's like they were, especially at a time where Morgan was at his lowest because he'd lost everyone, including Grace and the baby, because of Virginia. And it's like, right, he met them. They were kind of a fresh start for him, and it also led to him and Grace with Mo. So there's that. Then there's Nick, which was kind of a new start for him because helping out Nick kind of in his end after everything him and Alicia had been through losing their mom. And both of the Dory Sr. and Jr., and then Alicia, and then Grace, like all these people who've had a positive impact on his life, who he knows are gone, but they're always a part of him. And I just think that was so beautiful. That's why I was also saying like it's very reflective, because Rick's episode 5 of season 9 was very much like that for Rick, like seeing people who were gone kind of like final messaging for him. And I thought it was beautiful, And so I thought that was kind of a beautiful, if this is in fact Lenny's exit, especially because him being like, right, I'm going to find that friend of mine, who told me not to run. It's like, yo, this is to Rick Grimes. This is Morgan Jones. Whether you're at Alexandria, wherever you're out there, I'm going to leave this radio on, kind of making it full circle of their circumstances all those years ago. And that's also reflective of like the, especially with the Padre thing being what it is, it's very reflective of Michonne, but also, what's happening with Morgan. So I'm like, is Morgan going to be in the... Because I don't know if he pops up in like the series finale of like The Walking Dead or not, because like another example I'll use is like the Vampire Diaries series finale and the ending of the final season of the originals, even though like the final like season of Vampire Diaries aired and then the original, but final season aired, they coincide with. In fact, it might have actually been, if I remember correctly, I might be mistaken. Wasn't season 4? It wasn't even the final season. I think season 4 aired after the final season of Vampire Diaries. I don't think they were 1-for-1 with their final seasons. I think the originals might have been on season 4. I don't remember. So you kind of got this future thing that ultimately ends up tying in later. It might have been the final season of the originals with the school and everything. But the point I'm making, like, it could be something they set up like that where they reference Morgan and we just get the tail end. We now have the full story of like how that plays out and how, so I don't know. I might be reading too much into it, and maybe this is just, I don't know, this could easily be set up for like, like Morgan and Mo end up in the, because it's supposed to be like a limited mini-series, like a 6-episode thing of Rick and Michonne, because once again, there were supposed to be movies, but now instead of like 3 movies, you get 6 episodes, so it's like, basically 3 2-hour-long movies, essentially. If that is still the plan, that was the original plan when they announced it back in Comic-Con last year. So I don't know. So, but like I said, either way, that was just kind of like a nice exit and just into that story. And I wasn't, like I said, I expected Morgan's story to continue all the way through to the end of The Walking Dead. So I guess it's like, interestingly enough, Madison's shifting back over. It's almost interesting, like how, like, hey, both of our leads of this show are like together at the end of season 7, and now they're going to be kind of sharing the screen. And now it's like, right, Morgan, who came in to kind of fill that void, is now gone, and now Madison's back in the forefront. And then we have the ending with someone listening on the radio, and they have Alicia's, like, that contraption Alicia had on her, her arm that she had to cut off her part of her forearm. So it's like, how did you get that? Are you someone that's close to Alicia? Why would you have that in the back? Or whoever it was has 2 hands. So it might have been someone who was with Alicia when she went. It's been years and she wasn't expected to have a lot of time. So there's a lot to kind of keep in wonder about that, like what that's all about. So I'm excited to see what happens when we return for the final 6 episodes. From what I was looking up online, there doesn't seem to be any specific date, just that those final episodes will air like late this year. I'm assuming after Dead City. I don't know if it's going to be immediately after Dead City, but the show they do tend to like flow in that regard. So it might be whenever Dead City's done. I don't know if there's going to be anything after Dead City, like another Walking Dead project, because I know, like, I think the Daryl spinoff, I think there was a teaser put up for it like a while back, so I think it might be done. So that might fill in then, and then after that is when you'll get the final episodes of Fear. I don't know if that ends up playing out that way. And once again, I don't know. I think the Michonne and Rick one is already done. I don't know if that's still in like post-production or what. I think that's dropping this year too. I have no idea. Because I'm so far behind on everything, I tried not to I've avoided looking into some of that stuff. So either way, I'm excited to see where all of this ends up taking us when we return for the final episodes of The Walking Dead. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good